Hi, today we're at day 11, right? We're basically looking at covering functions today. Um, we're going to look at dictionary data types because we covered lists yesterday, and JSON dictionaries, which are very closely related. And those functions, we're going to see how those functions wrap into classes in Python. So we're going to look at classes, functions, dictionaries, and some JSON data structures, right? We're going to try and build some modular code so that we can handle structured data that comes into our functions, right? And that's what the JSON is. It's a data structure, right? So we want to kind of do that. Um, Functions, when you create functions, they're reusable logic. Um, they feed into classes because classes help us build like real world objects. If you guys noticed, whenever we went over our basics, especially over day 7, what we did is we created like a contact book, if you remember, that we could access, right? So we gave an empty dictionary, and then we wrote a bunch of functions. And when we instantiated the functions into objects, we fed data in the form of strings. And we appended that data got appended through the functions into the contact book dictionary, right? And then we were able to print that out and get that data. Um, then, if you guys remember, on day 8 and 9, we had like a pretty elaborate project that we built out. We built out like students, input data, and we built out a student profile for a computer science master's AI concentration student. We put his GPA in, we put his course concentration in, and we built logic in loops around that, in if and else control flow statements around that. And we looked at the different kinds of data types, different kinds of control flow logic with uh, so we looked at all the different data types. Like we looked at integers, floats, strings, and lists as holders of that data, and then the if-else control flow statements, how they can logically be used to load a dictionary data type with variables. So name, program, year, courses taken, courses earned, GPA, artificial intelligence hard coded, and working on thesis and part-time job. This covered booleans, integers, floats, and lists as data types, all wrapped inside a dictionary, which is nested, right? So we did that practice, which was pretty involved. Um, we did that. We wrote these logical statements in this script, uh, you know, and then yesterday we looked at loops. Yesterday we went into for loops and while loops, um, and we went into list structures. So we used lists as data structures, and we looked at how we can use loops to output data in those lists, right? I'm gonna quickly demonstrate again what we ended up doing. Let's just run it over here. Right, so we did a basic list. We noticed how to print out the length of the list and the type. We looked at how to access it with an index, and then we did some index-related print statements depending on like what section of the list, right? So the term for this is called splicing. So you splice the list. depending on what requirement you had, right? Um, so we did that, and then we wrote some for loops, and we wrote a for loop with an if statement in it, a couple of if statements, and we did a continue and break, right? And then we also did a while loop, which we're going to do again. We're going to run the while loop through the debugger again to kind of like understand uh, exactly what this is doing. So let's kind of like, we got a couple of debug points over here. Let's run our debugger, right? So let's say print two-letter.com domain names, right? So what we did is we used the while loop to generate data on our console. What we're doing is we're generating an immense amount of data. If we're looking at this specific loop, generates domain names like .com, but they're only two-letter, A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E, or whatever, all the way through A, Z. Then B, A, B, D, B, C, or whatever, all the way to B, Z. And then C, A, C, D to C, Z. So you see, so the first is constant A, and then it goes through all the alphabets, then keeps B, and then goes through all the alphabets, then C. So you have an immense amount of these numbers, right? It's 27 into 27. Because each one has 27. So it might be 27 squared or something like that. I don't know the mathematical analysis of it. But this is the build. So let's look at what the inner loop does once, right? Right, so let's push it through and let's look at letter A and letter 2, right? So we put A and then question mark, right? So we have these two variables, letter 1 and letter 2 assigned, right? So it says while letter A is less than equal to Z, it's A. So it's a string A. And then we go to letter 2, right? Which is a question mark. So while letter 2 is less than Z, which it is, run the inner loop, right? So if you notice, it's running the inner loop. Let's go from 75 to line 73 now. So it's going to jump. When I push it through, it goes back up to 73. So if you notice, the while loop is just circling over and over and over. And you've seen that letter 2 is incrementing A, B, C, D, E, right? And you're seeing that printed out on the console because of the print statement in line 74. That's the format of letter 1 and 2, right? So we know that letter 1 is already set to A by default, right? So the inner one is going to circle all the way till it hits Z, right? So it's going to circle a bunch of times, right? And we could take these two debug points off and just push it through and just look at it. It pushed it all the way out to EHI. We can push it through to Z. Do you see? It printed everything out all the way to Z. So notice it's only done one loop. So now we want it to go to B, right? So the outer loop is going to kick in now. So while letter 1 is equal to B, it should change to B now, right? And see letter 1 change to B. You notice that? And that is going to, now you're going to see a full output of all letters to Z because the inner loop ran 27 times, right? We don't have a debug point on there, so it didn't slow down. But if you want to push it, we can go to C, and now it'll run. Every time we hit this, you see letter 2 is changing in the left panel over here. Just look at this for a second. Right, so every time I click on this, it changes the L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, right? And then it'll just automatically go to the outer one and then after Z, it'll change C to D. Now it'll start again, and then it'll go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever. So it's building this dictionary down here with that, right? That's what's going on over here, right? All right. So that's this loops function, right? And if you push it through, it goes all the way and ends the program, right? With this. So that's a conclusion to yesterday's loops that we were going over, right? I encourage you to give this a shot when you get a chance. Give it a try. Tell me what you think in the chat or whatever. We can talk about it. I'm going to be online, obviously, every day for the next 30 days, the next 19 days at least. Doing Python, getting our basics solid, so that then we can jump into intermediate stuff. And we can start to get close to an algorithm, and then we'll pick one, and we'll kind of dive into that. Kind of go from there. Okay, so let's create a file for day 11. And I'm going to reiterate what we were going to cover today, right? So we're going to cover data types. We're going to go to dictionaries now, and JSON. And we're going to explore the import JSON library in Python, which is import JSON. Okay. And you just put that in, type that in, and basically what happens is you're using an external library to JSON, but it comes packaged. It's not an external library, it's an internal library, because it's a built-in. It comes packaged with Python. So when you install Python on your computer, it default has this JSON package that allows you to manipulate a JSON data structure. If you guys are familiar, with CRUD operations, the API stack, especially web APIs, HTTPS, use CRUD, but a version of that, right? So they do a get, put, post, and delete call, right? A put is an update. A post is a create in a database. A delete is a delete, obviously, and a get is do just like a select statement in a SQL query, to get data, right? And you can use those statements in the API call against a server that has hosted information. And the way to do those API calls is with the URL, target URL, where you're going to message them, and headers for authentication, and a payload. And the payload is typically in JSON. So that's why we're talking about APIs, is because JSON bodies are typically now what the servers are communicating back and forth with each other from XML. So it's a key value data structure. In Python, under the hood, it uses hash maps. That's pretty much what it does, right? So again, why JSON? Because JSON is an inbuilt module. It's a very common data format that we use in APIs for data exchange, right? So that's that. So let's start off with functions, right? So we're gonna write a quick function, and it should not be completely foreign to you, because we have written functions before. On day 7, we were already writing functions. If you guys remember. So like this is a function, and the keyword that we use to write a function is def, right? So the way you start writing is like this, right? So we can call it greet student, right? And we can pass a variable to it. Name, we'll pass name because we've been doing names quite a bit. Then we can go print. And if you guys remember yesterday, we did a bunch of different kinds of print statements. I don't know if you remember. This is in the way. We want to put this down here a little bit. Like that. If you guys remember, yesterday we looked at a couple of print statements here. So let's look at these if we can still see them. If you remember, we did for string formatting, we did this, right? So we're doing string again. So we can do something like this. We can do modulus string and come outside and give modulus again. Where would they go? Mod. And then we can give name, right? So that's our variable, and this is our print structure, right? So we can print anything we want over here. So we can say, hello, my name is, okay, my name, my, okay, shift, I'm so-and-so, right? And I'm a student at ASU. I mean, I don't know, at Arizona State, right? So syntactically, I think this is correct, right? And now this function won't really run. The Python file won't really give you much of an output. Why won't it give you an output? It won't give you an output because you don't have a function call, right? So this function is not really going to do anything for us unless we give a name, right? And we call the function and we create an object, right? So let's call the object student, right? And we're going to call greet student, and we're going to give it a string. We're going to say, hey, what is the name? And it literally says what the name is, like what we're going to pass as a variable, right? So we can pass in Justin, right? And it'll print out. Now it'll print out, the statement says print, right? So it's going to print this. It's going to say blah, 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 whatever, right? Let's run it. Do you guys see the output? So let me, there we go. Hello, I'm Justin. I'm a student at ASU, right? Now, what happens if we go to home do that? There's no output. So it's going to return this, right? It's going to print it, right? But you're not going to get an output here unless you put a print statement on it, right? Or you could do something like this, like you could go print student, right? So it's going to print out what it returned, and then you see the output here. So you guys clear with that? That's how you can use a print statement. You didn't use there are many places you could put it right there. You could wrap that in a print. You could delete that. You could put the print over here. But you got to know where to put the print statements, right? So that's something that is worth thinking about. Okay, so let's go to the next function. Right, let's go to def compute GPA. We can take in grades from the student, like if not for grades, return 0.0. Like that. Return round sum grades we have to put an integer here, right? So we're going to print compute GPA, and we're going to pass in a list of grades. So it can be a list, and we can go 5, 4.0, 3.8, right? So this rounded to two decimals, right? So we can put 3 here and rerun it, and we can see 767, right? So the round function worked over here. It summed the grades that we passed in here. So we did a sum on all these, and then it ran a length on all these, which is 3. So it did the sum of all these 3 by 3, which gives you the average, and it gave you the average, and it rounded it to the last 3 or whatever, right? So that's how it worked, right? Okay. So now what we can do is we can define a student. We should define the student. Let's try and do that. We can create a class. We couldn't call and you don't have to give a variable to a class, because a class uses a initializer, right? This, right? And self, and then you do self name is equal to name, all right? God, it's lowercase. Right. See why this is crying? So what's happening is we're building a blueprint of a student, right? So we're gonna give in some more variables in here. So we can give name, we can go give program, we can give grades, right? So we can go give self.program equals to program. And we can give self.grades equal to grades, right? So we can give him this. And then we can give self.gpa, which is equal to compute GPA. Okay. The reason it took this like this is because grades is going to get passed in. So what happens is when we're going to instantiate student, we can't instantiate student without giving it these three parameters. And if you notice, grades will get used in line number 23 and line number 24. It'll get used in both of these places, right? So it'll be like, okay. So that's basically how the initialization of the class will work, right? Let's write another function really quick. We can do def to dictionary, right? Return. Shift, man, not control. Something like this, right? So let's go. New self.program, right? And this will make sense in a second. Self.grades GPA. Jeez, not spa. That's where I want to go. I want to go to a spa, man. Okay. Okay, so we got this basic structure, right? So don't want my screen to fall over, which it did. I'm sorry for the interruption. Oh God. Okay, just move this thing a little over here. All right. So let's take a step back here. So why did we define this class, right? We created student, right, so that in the program we can give parameters to the class when we instantiate the class, and then what is this init on line number 20, right? The initializer, it's a special method, right? It's used to create a new object in this class. So if you didn't have the initializing step in line 20 in Python, you would not be able to use a class. Like, this is the constructor of the class. It's default in the class. It's part of the syntax of building a class object. So if you build a class, you have to use the init method, as far as I know, right? And you have to build it in this way, right? So that you can use it over and over again, right? So the self is the initialization. So when you create student on line number 33, and you pass in name as Adi, and the program is computer science, and the grades is 3.5, 4.5, and 6.5 in a list, you're gonna see that those grades, that list will get assigned to self.grades in line 23, and in line 24, the computation is going to happen. If you pass only one grade in, it's still going to put that inside a list, because the grades is a list data type, right? At least that's how we've used it over here, and that's what's going to happen over here too, right? So think of it that way. Okay. Why to dict, right? Basically, you take in everything you're feeding into your student, and if you run this function at the end of student, if you instantiate student with the data once, right, this function is going to do the heavy lifting for you and then return this to you with this build, saying this is the GPA, these are the grades, these are the programs, and you don't have that right now. You don't have a dictionary built out anywhere, right? But this function is going to build out a data structure for you and return that data structure. So you instantiate student and you pass this one time over here, these values, and it's going to automatically be off to the races, right? For you. That's what it is, right? And then one more thing we can cover. We can do a string. Should we do a string? Let's do an instantiation. Let's call it now. Is what we should do. You guys. Okay. So we already did student. So you do student underscore class, right, is equal to student. This is the actual class, and we want to pass in data to it, right? So the first is the name. So we want to pass in Sean, right? And then we want to pass in the program. So MSC CS, right? And then we want to pass in a list of data, right? So I don't remember what we passed on top. We can just copy this right here. Let's just copy this and put this in here, right? So if you run this, you're not going to really see an output for line 34 on the console, because you're not done anything past this print statement, right? If you print it, You get okay, and another thing, like because this just takes self on it, so when you call it, you don't have to really pass anything to it to build this dictionary, right? You can just go dot to dict like that, right? And then you can go print student class like that. Why does it not take it? I think does this and it does main student. I wonder if you put a string. So if you do a string class, a string function here inside this function, it could potentially solve our little problem for us, right? So like this function, we can write something like this, right? So def string, is it like that? If I remember correctly, self So GPA, right? Didn't print it. This should print it. Think about it, buddy. Why is it not printing this function call to dictionary inside this class, right? So this is the class instantiation. So you can do this to I removed it, man. Has no attribute to dict. Student object has no attribute to dict. Yes, it does. Oh, it's not tabbed in. Man, what are we doing over here? This has to be tabbed in. No wonder it's not able to pick it up. This should run now. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about the waste of time. But debugging is part of the. So Python is tricky with the spaces, right? So do you notice how this def to dictionary is inside this. So everything doesn't get passed to it properly unless it's nested like this, right? So by nesting it, it'll automatically run. And I'm pretty sure that you don't even have to write the string to string. Yeah, you don't need that. This is complicated. You don't need this kind of like double under dunder string self and return the name, whatever GPA and all that jazz. Like you don't need to do name program GPA. This code right here is sufficient to do what we needed to do, right? Um, so let's do that. So I have some student data in the sample JSON that we can just paste in here. There it is. I'll put it in the chat so that everybody has it. So that's the data that we put in. And if you type in, if you put a debugger here and you run F5, what you can do is you can go to the debug console and you can print out, well, jump this, push it through to our actual debug point. And you look at what sample JSON is. It's not passed in, so copy it, paste it in the console and smash it. It says that it's a string, that it didn't take it properly. Maybe it needs to be single quoted. Really? It's a list that needs to be in here, like that. There we go. It didn't copy it from the text editor properly. Okay, so you have sample JSON right here, right? So you can run something like this on it. Type, and you ask the system, hey, what is sample JSON? It's a string. It's a string because it's in the structure of a key value JSON, but it's inside triple quotes, so that makes it a string, right? Now, if you remember, we imported the JSON module here, right? So you can use json.loads, and you should be able to load it, I think, into data, right? So data equals to so JSON's already loaded, right? So JSON dot, okay, so it's there. So data object is equal to json.loads. It's loads plural, and you put sample JSON in, right? And you see what data is now, and you do type here for data, and you see that it's a list. And you go into lists with indexes, right? So let's find out the length of the list. What's the length of the list, right? It's 3. So if you go to data and you do like this, 0, 1, 2 are the indexes. So if you do 1, you'll get Sean, MDS, whatever. If you go in and you hit 0, you get this. And then if you get 2, you'll get Drew, right? So the entire string was loaded into an object called data, right? So the way to do this, right, is like you can write a function here, right? So you can go something like process student, right? And then we have we want to tab it because, well, actually we don't want to do that. Why don't we want to do that? Because the data, we want to put the data up top, right? So let's remove it from here and let's put it right underneath here, that on the top. We can also import it into the file, right? Let's shut this off. Let's shut this. Where did it go, man? Read student was the, where did it go? Read student, GPA, class, def, class, student. Okay, so let's pass it in here. Let's go in here. Stop the debugger. Let's go here, let's close this. Shift. JSON data. Sample JSON, not JSON data. Sample JSON. Okay. We called it data, right? So student data is equal to, we know we can use json.loads, and we can go in here and we're passing in sample. Oh my God, don't fat finger stuff, man. Sample JSON, right? So we give that. We give an empty list. Why do we give an empty list? Because we're gonna iterate through student data. So we have 3 students. We have Sean, Aditya, and Drew in the students, right? So what we're gonna do is for data in student data, right? Can we build it like this? Look at it this way, right? So let's see if we can do this. The debugger is not running anymore. I want to use it here. Let's go to F5 again. Why is it whining? Oh, it's because this is commented. Go over here, rerun it. We're better off developing in the console, right? So if we wanted to create a json.loads object, right, with sample JSON, like that, so we get data, right? We know that we can iterate this, right? For student in data print student. That's all the students, right? We can also give, I wonder if we can build a student dictionary. So what we can do is like this. We can call the class student if we call the class and then we instantiate the class, oh man, we could do that, right? So we have name, program, and grades. And this is the 3 values that we can give in. So we can give something like this, right? Like data, name, data, program, data, grades. wild. And we create this new, it says name is undefined. It's because we don't have all the code to be able to put here. I bet you it works in here. It's just a self-taught name. Okay. Okay. So what you do is you want to use the append right here, right? So for data in student data, student is equal to student class. And the student class, if you remember, takes name, program, and grades, list of grades, right? So we can instantiate that here by giving 3 hard-coded values. On top, we gave Sean, MS, CS, and a string, if you remember, right? So in here, we have this student in data or data in student data, which is the sample JSON, right? So we have name, program, and grades in sample JSON, as you can see, right? So the way to get to it, right, is like this: data, right, and then we go in here, and then we go name is equal to name, just name, man. Computer escape. Why is it whining? It shouldn't whine. For data and student data, Control V. For student and data, name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So is student data, this. Student objects dot append. In here we put student. No, man. Where'd it go? Student. You got it. And then we go print. We don't want to do a string. Greet student and put the name in here. We go student name. We go print. Okay. Create. Class student dict. This is the call. This is sample JSON. Process student. The strings, the keys, the key names. So it's not inside a function, right? So that's the what is going on? Oh, this quotation has to be inside. I don't know why it's outside. What am I doing? Delete that right there. That should do it. Name, program, same thing over here. Grades is a key, and that has to be in quotes like that. All right. Okay, so that runs import JSON right here, right? So you imported JSON, you took a sample over here of data, and then you process that with a loads function from JSON. It's built in, and it's a module. See what it says, right? So JSON is a JavaScript object notation from json.org. It is a subject of JavaScript syntax. It is used as a lightweight data interchange format. So if you go back early in the video, I was talking about APIs and about data exchange. Data exchange happens between servers via APIs, and the data payload is in a JSON format usually, right? So JSON exposes an API familiar to users in the standard library, Marshall, and Pickle modules. And Pickle files are giant data files that are generated from R code in machine learning. Once these Pickle files are generated, they can be as an output of an algorithm in R. They can be picked up by Python and processed and put into AWS or into any kind of database, like up in the cloud, right, for further processing and for running data analytics on that Pickle file, right? So that's that. And that was how to run this basically. And this is it's printing this student information out right here. We're passing this up top, right? I think we should call this process student, right? So SDNT is equal to process student right here. It's because it's not being called, it's not printing all this stuff out to the console, right? And it takes in the sample JSON. So we already have sample JSON is equal to sample JSON. And up top, it's already here, the object's right here. So 44 is being put into this, and it's going to run the print statements now, right? So that's the output you're going to I don't think we even need this. Right, so it passes a raw string in, right? And then it loads that string in here with this loads function. And then it processes that data out for us, right? Student. Let's just comment this, man. Comment it. All right. Hello, I'm greet student with student name. So it says, hello, I'm so and so, and I'm a student at ASU. And it interchanged the name or whatever because it passed the name and a different name in here. And it ran this over and over again. The greet. It ran multiple times. And then it should have ran the I think what this is doing is it's just that should do it. Okay. Clean this up. Print student objects. Student print. I appended it in here and I need to print this here. Outside the loop, right? So we append all this. So every time this loop runs, it's appending stuff up here. So we want to print student objects, right? So after the loop is run 3 times or whatever and appended everything up here, it's going to print that. It's going to say, hey, hello, blah, 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 whatever. And then it's going to print out what it built out over here. Student objects. Why didn't it print it? Student objects that append student. Print student. Oh, student objects just has this 3 times in it. Why it's not printing that is another story. Why is it? Debugger galore. Okay. Okay, student objects has 0, all this stuff. So we have to go inside 0 and then you have to go GPA grades and name program. So student objects, student, no, 0. So let's do this, right? GPA. What is grades? Grades is a list. So grades, but it is also a key inside dictionary. Name. Okay. Okay, student objects. Ooh, GPA. Okay, so it has to be dot, not this. So dot GPA. And, delete all this stuff right here. Dot grades. All right, so that fixed it right there. So that's how you use a debugger basically. You want to code inside your debugger if you can, because it's a lot easier to do that. Like you see that right there. And if you stagger this inside your for loop, it's going to print it over and over again for each student, right? So what it did is it said, hey, I'm a student, you know, and I'm at ASU. So it used that greet function right here, and then you pass the name to it. So it printed out that line saying that I'm a student, right? But then it iterated, it did the unique name for each one of the data that was passed in or whatever. It took the name from here and passed this data in to that function up top to say, hello, I'm a student at ASU. Who is it? It's a Sean and Drew. Those are the names, right? But then later on, you were able to take that entire set of data, build this student object right here, which has the name, program, and grades as well inside it. Just pass the names to the greet, and then append all of this into this list, which gives us an actual list instead of a JSON string, right? So you took the raw JSON string, bumped it into this json.loads function. After you ran the json.loads function, you instantiated this object that was empty. You appended all the data over here to that, and then what you did is you passed the first data name into the first function greet, and then after that, you cherry picked grades, GPA, name, and program as you wanted from the object that was created. The student objects that were appended up here, right? And then you printed them out to the console over and over again. So this loop ran, and every time it looped over, it printed out student. and then the student greeting, which is actually what we saw, hello, blah, blah, blah. And then it printed out the GPA, grades, name, etc. of the program. So that's functions, JSON module, a class. Where did it go? Okay. And then a class built for a student, how to use the double underscore initialization method that comes bundled with the class, right? And then we looked at how we want to go ahead with with processing data and then building out a function, right? So we really focused on how to take data into the function and then go through it, loop through it or whatever. So again, this sample JSON that we used, right? This is our Discord. If you take a picture with it and pass it into your whatever AI algorithm you use, you'll be able to get all this information, right? And then put it into your Python files and run it. Um, you know, uh, that way. Anyways, thank you so much. We will continue on tomorrow and look at how to take this data from this class and create objects, or maybe create another class and then call that class into the other class and see how that works. There's a there's a there's a programming concept that we want to go over, right, in object-oriented languages. That's really to do with classes. It's inheritance, right? So we'll go over that a little bit more tomorrow. Anyways, thank you so much. Have a nice evening. I will talk to you guys tomorrow on the stream. Thanks for joining. Have a nice rest of the day or evening, and talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.